Emergency services. What is your emergency? It's my neighbor, Michelle Keila. I haven't seen her. Her car's there, but the lights are off and she never misses work. I tried calling, tried knocking. Ma'am, have you tried to enter the residence? The door is locked from the inside. That's the problem. I don't understand. Everything looks normal, but nothing feels normal. Something is wrong. The door was locked from the inside, but the silence coming from Michelle's room was louder than any scream. When investigators finally entered, they found a scene that defied logic. A pristine home, no sign of forced entry, but one person missing. Michelle Keila. The initial appearance suggested a departure, but the subtle details told a story of a calculated act. To understand the tragedy of Michelle Keila, we have to look at the week leading up to it, and the one person she told she was afraid, a person whose presence seemed to change the very air around her. Michelle Keila was not a case file number. She was a vibrant 32-year-old software engineer in Seattle, known for her intricate community gardening projects and her sharp, analytical mind. She had a close circle of friends and a career that was on an upward trajectory. People in her life described her as someone who solved problems, who brought light and structure to chaos. Today, we aren't just looking at the what. We are using official police records and behavioral analysis to figure out the why, and how this case remains unsolved in 2025. We'll examine the police reports, the emergency services transcripts, and the behavioral evidence to piece together a puzzle that has haunted a community for too long. We will stick to the facts, presenting 70% documented reality and 30% analytical commentary, aiming to bring clarity to this enduring mystery. We believe the answers are in the details. To understand the void left behind, you have to understand the life Michelle Keila built. She wasn't someone who just existed in a space. She organized it. As a lead software engineer, her colleagues at her Seattle firm described her as the logical anchor of the team, the one who could find the single line of broken code in a sea of thousands. But when she clocked out, that same precision shifted toward her community. Her family shared that Michelle was a woman of deliberate habits. Every Saturday morning at 7 a.m., she was at the local community garden. She didn't just plant flowers. She mapped out the irrigation for the entire neighborhood. Her sister Sarah noted in a 2025 memorial statement that Michelle believed that if you took care of the small things, the big things would take care of themselves. She was a pillar of reliability. Her friends didn't just like her. They relied on her. She was the one who remembered every birthday, the one who always had a backup plan. In a world that often feels chaotic, Michelle was the person who made things make sense. When news of the locked door and the empty house broke, that sense of order was shattered. The neighborhood transformed almost instantly. The community garden, once a hub of morning activity, became a place people hurried past. Within 48 hours of the investigation becoming public, local hardware stores reported a record surge in the sale of deadbolts and high-end security systems. The impact was physical. People stopped walking their dogs after sunset. The local neighborhood watch, which had been largely symbolic for years, suddenly had a waiting list for patrol shifts. This wasn't just grief. It was a collective loss of safety. For many, the fact that Michelle, a woman so careful and so structured, could disappear from her own locked home was the most frightening detail of all. It suggested that no amount of preparation could truly keep the world out. Michelle's life was defined by structure. She followed the same routes, shopped at the same times, and kept a rigid schedule. In your experience, do you think having a strict routine makes a person safer because people know where they are? Or does it make them a more accessible target for someone watching? Let's discuss your thoughts on behavioral patterns in the comments. Now, we move to the night the structure failed. Using the official police logs, let's reconstruct the final hours. On the evening of the disappearance, there was no struggle reported, no broken glass, No neighbors heard a thing. But as we look at the geographical mapping of her last known movements, a pattern emerges that suggests she wasn't alone long before she reached that front door. Monday, October 14th. Michelle's movements were as rhythmic as a heartbeat. 5:45 p.m. CCTV captures her silver sedan exiting her office parking garage. 6:12 p.m. She stops at her local grocer. The footage shows her checking a list, organized, as always. She buys enough for the week. 6:40 p.m. Her car pulls into the driveway.
At 6:45 p.m., the front door light, triggered by a motion sensor, flickers on. Michelle enters. This is the last time she is seen alive. For hours, the house remains quiet. No visitors, no unusual vehicles. When police arrived the next morning, they found the groceries still on the counter. The milk was warm. The deadbolt was engaged from the inside. In the bedroom, the bed was made. The only thing missing was Michelle. It was as if she had simply ceased to exist within the four walls of her own sanctuary. The initial theory was a voluntary disappearance. She walked out, they said. But the crime lab found something that changed everything. On the interior track of a locked kitchen window, investigators discovered a single microscopic droplet of synthetic lubricant, the kind used in professional locksmith tools. This wasn't a case of a woman walking out. It was a case of someone walking in through a portal that should have been impassable. This took the investigation into a tailspin. We spent months sifting through red herrings. There was the disgruntled former colleague, Person A, who'd been passed over for a promotion Michelle received. He had the technical skill and the motive. He was monitored for 90 days. His every move was cataloged. But while police were watching him, they missed the fact that the lubricant found at the scene didn't match anything in his possession. Police focused exclusively on Person A for 3 months, based on professional rivalry. Given the lack of a physical struggle and the specialized tool used on the window, would you have continued investigating the personal connection? Or would you have started looking for a professional predator? When we look at the behavioral evidence, the scene tells us more about the perpetrator than the victim. This wasn't a spontaneous act of violence. Spontaneous acts leave a trail. Knocked over chairs, broken dishes, blood spatter. Michelle's home was too clean. Behavioral analysts call this staging. The perpetrator took the time to reset the environment. They didn't just take Michelle. They tried to take the evidence of her departure. The choice of a locked room mystery suggests a perpetrator who craves control and enjoys the intellectual challenge of outsmarting the system. They didn't want to just hurt her. They wanted to erase the struggle entirely. This level of calm indicates someone who has done this before, someone who views a crime scene as a canvas. In late 2024, a new piece of digital evidence emerged. Using advanced geofencing data, investigators identified a ghost device, a burner phone that pinged a local tower at 3 a.m. on the night Michelle vanished. By early 2025, forensic technicians bypassed the encryption on a cloud server Michelle hadn't shared with anyone. It contained a series of pings from her own home security system that she had silently flagged. For 3 weeks leading up to her disappearance, the system recorded internal sensor bypasses at exactly 2:14 a.m. Someone wasn't just breaking in, they were practicing. They were learning the layout of her life while she slept, right under her nose. The digital trail didn't lead to a person, it led to a terrifying realization. Michelle knew someone was there, and she was trying to catch them herself. For years, investigators stared at the photos of the hallway. Everything looked perfect. But in early 2025, a cold case detective re-examining the high-resolution crime scene images noticed a discrepancy that had been dismissed as a technical glitch. The digital thermostat in the hallway was set to 82 degrees. Michelle was a woman of meticulous comfort and energy efficiency. Her journals and smart home history showed she never set her heat above 68 degrees. This wasn't a mistake. The aha moment came when the team realized the high temperature wasn't for the perpetrator's comfort. It was a biological reset. By raising the heat to 82 degrees immediately after the crime, the perpetrator was intentionally manipulating the rate of decomposition of any organic trace evidence left behind and confusing the time of death window for forensic entomologists. This was a level of forensic awareness that moved the suspect from capable to expert. Then there was the signature. While the home was scrubbed of DNA, the perpetrator left one thing behind: a small silver gardening trowel placed dead center on Michelle's pillow. It wasn't hers. Analysis of the tool's wear patterns suggests it was used frequently, but not for gardening. Why leave it? This is the psychological signature. To this killer, the act wasn't just about the abduction. It was about the irony. Michelle spent her life nurturing growth in her garden, and the killer used a symbol of that growth to mark the spot where her life was uprooted. This reveals a power-assertive personality, someone who doesn't just want to commit a crime, but wants to leave a mark that mocks the victim's very identity. The timing, the 2:14 a.m. bypasses, shows a predator who thrives on the God complex of being present while the victim is at their most vulnerable. As of late 2025, the case has moved into a new phase of activity. The ghost device geofencing data we discussed is currently being cross-referenced with a series of similar locked room disappearances across the Pacific Northwest. A dedicated task force is now utilizing proteomic analysis, a 2025 breakthrough that allows scientists to identify individuals from the proteins in a single hair or skin cell, even when the DNA is too degraded to sequence. The silver trowel is currently undergoing this new testing. The net is not just closing. It is tightening around a profile that is becoming clearer by the day. This investigation is active. Michelle Keila was a woman who organized her world to be safe, yet she was taken by someone who exploited that very order. If you lived in the Seattle area between 2020 and 2025 and remember seeing a silver gardening tool in a place it didn't belong, or if you recognize the behavioral pattern of internal sensor bypasses in your own home security logs, your information could be the final piece. You can submit anonymous tips through the Crime Stoppers website or the dedicated Michelle Keila tip line linked in the description below. Every piece of data counts. We often think that locks and logic can protect us. Michelle lived her life by those rules. But the story of her disappearance teaches us that the greatest threat often comes from someone who studies those rules just to find the one place they break. Michelle's legacy lives on in the garden she built and the community that refuses to forget her name. We don't stop looking until the silence in that room is replaced by the truth. Michelle's story is a haunting reminder of how digital footprints can be manipulated. To see how these exact geofencing techniques were used to catch a predator in a similar locked room case in Oregon, click the video on your screen now. Thank you for seeking the truth with us. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on Michelle's case. We'll see you in the next investigation.